This season, the WNBA has been thriving like never before, with ticket sales seeing a 93% increase and viewership seeing a 180% increase. The WNBA's current TV deal, worth $50 million a year, is now set to quadruple on their next deal, with 6 different TV networks having set WNBA viewership records during the regular season. And this has been dubbed as the Caitlin Clark effect, with all 6 of these games featuring the rookie sensation. Clark has boosted her team's fan attendance by 157% compared to last season and has sold out crowds in NBA arenas of up to 20,000 people. She has completely changed not just the Indiana Fever, but the entire WNBA itself. However, the rest of the WNBA does not want to accept Caitlin Clark for the game changer that she has been.
It's almost like there's this resistance to acknowledging Caitlin Clark and the impact that she has had.
You know, I don't know Caitlin. I don't know her from anywhere. And you're playing against somebody like me, I classify myself as a dog.
I actually make
The reality is coming. There's levels to this thing. You know, you look superhuman playing against 18-year-olds, but you're going to come with some grown women that have been playing professional basketball for a long time.
But if you have a legend who's coming at a young player on the rise, it's not a good look.
It was up to Caitlin Clark herself to prove everyone wrong. Since the league's inception in 1996, the WNBA has lost an average of $10 million annually, with the only way that it can still remain being annual funding from the NBA to help cover operating costs. For years, WNBA players have vocalized that they want to be paid more, but with the league operating on subsidies, that has been a difficult task. The majority of revenue generated by major sports leagues does come from their broadcasting deals. Most notably, the NBA recently finalized a $76 billion deal over the next 11 years with Disney, and this deal allows for NBA player contracts to continue to increase. With the WNBA's incremental growth over the years and their current broadcasting deal ending in 2025, negotiations were on for the next deal, which would be key in allowing their players to be paid more. But the WNBA and their potential business partners would be looking for a game changer, a transcendent player that could skyrocket the popularity of the sport, and it seemed like that player existed at the University of Iowa.
Part of this logo in the middle is Sid, Caitlin Clark.
Sits Clark from the logo, and yes, it got it.
She's Diana Taurasi. She's Steph Curry.
History in flight, you bet. Caitlin Clark, Clark for the win. Yes, she does it time and time again. The 40 piece.
Caitlin Clark had completely taken over women's college basketball at Iowa, and it all began in her junior season with the legendary run to the national championship game. After 3 wins to reach the Elite 8 of the tournament, Caitlin Clark had her statement performance with a 41-point triple-double against Louisville to bring Iowa to the Final Four. And in that Louisville game, she also showed the world that she could talk some trash, telling her opponents he had down 15, shut up, and hitting the "you can't see me," which even John Cena approved of. But Iowa's run was expected to end here in the Final Four because they were facing a South Carolina team that had won 42 consecutive games. But Caitlin Clark shocked the world. Yet another 41-point performance, making 10 3-pointers in that game. She was electrifying and entertaining, and once again her competitive edge was shown.
Caitlin Clark, left side. She doesn't even look at her, waves her hand as if to say, I don't care about you, I'm not defending you.
In the national championship game, Iowa would face LSU, and despite 30 points from Clark in that game, it was the LSU Tigers coming away victorious, with LSU star Angel Reese talking some trash herself to Caitlin Clark.
I wanted to pick her pocket, but I had a moment at the end of the game, and I was in my bag. I was in my moment.
But with Clark becoming a fan favorite over the last few weeks, social media did not respond well to the trash talking of Angel Reese, with a lot of statements being made about her completely crossing the line. And Clark herself addressed the backlash that Reese was receiving.
We're all competitive. We all show our emotions in a different way. You know, Angel's tremendous player. I have nothing but respect for her. I love her game. The way she rebounds the ball, scores the ball is absolutely incredible. You know, no matter which way it goes, you know, she should never be criticized for what she did. You know, I'm just one that competes, and she competed. So I think everybody knew there was going to be a little trash talk in the entire tournament. It's not just me and Angel, so.
Regardless of what social media was saying, this was all in competition, and the players knew that. But this would still create the story of a rivalry between a hero and a villain moving forward in women's basketball, a storyline that anyone could buy into. As if Clark's electrifying game wasn't already enough, now there was narrative. Entering the 2023 to 2024 season, both Clark and Reese were seniors, meaning they would be eligible for the 2024 WNBA draft, further connecting their stories together. And as LSU and Iowa both had great seasons, these two players met up against each other in the NCAA tournament once again, this time in the Elite 8. And this time it was Caitlin Clark who prevailed, scoring 41 points to get revenge on LSU and Angel Reese. Her game did all the talking necessary. And just like Caitlin Clark games speak for itself, herself, today's sponsor Factor has fresh, never frozen meals to speak for themselves. I'm sure there's many of you like me that don't really have time to cook like that, and it often leads to, overspending on takeout. It gets the best of us, right? So that's why instead I've been using Factor. Factor delivers chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals right to your door. And my favorite part is that all you have to do is heat these things up in the microwave for 2 minutes and it's ready. Actually, that's not true. Because my favorite part is how this tastes. The whole 2-minute preparation time thing though, that's my second favorite part. Factor has a large variety of meals each week with a weekly menu of 35 options, including some popular ones like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. I'm on that Protein Plus, man, trying to get big. And there's also over 60 add-on options each week that includes things like breakfast, snacks, and these protein shakes right here, man, these are fire. Y'all go head over to factor75.com or use the link down below in the description. And of course, use code WillSoTrill50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. Again, that's code WillSoTrill50 at factor75.com, and you get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Now let's check back in on what's happening with Caitlin Clark. In the Final Four, Iowa took down UConn to make another national championship game where it was a familiar opponent in their way, the South Carolina Gamecocks, who were undefeated since their last defeat to Iowa in the previous season. They wanted their revenge and a national title to go along with it, and that's exactly what they got. Caitlin Clark's 30 points not being enough to get the job done, and South Carolina's legendary head coach Don Staley had high praise for Clark after the game.
And I want to personally thank Caitlin Clark for lifting up our sport. She carried a heavy load for our sport. So Caitlin Clark, if you're out there, you are one of the GOATs of our games, and we appreciate you.
Although her heroics were not able to bring Iowa a national championship, the impact she had on women's basketball during this last year was unforgettable. Both of her games in the Final Four racking up over 14 million viewers, making it the most viewed women's Final Four ever, with the national championship game also being the most viewed ever at 19 million. More viewership than every single NBA Finals game since Game 6 of the 2019 NBA Finals. Everyone wanted to watch Caitlin Clark play. She had become must-see TV and was being called the Steph Curry of women's basketball. That transcendent player that the WNBA needed for a much bigger TV deal may have been right here the whole time. But Caitlin Clark would have to live up to all that hype, because if she didn't, a lot of interest would be lost. And with a lot of interest lost meant a lot of money lost, not just for her, but the whole WNBA. The future of the WNBA was in her hands as she entered the 2024 draft, but with the hype comes some doubters, and one of the players Clark idolized growing up had become one.
I mean, Camilla's coming, Caitlin's coming, there's more than just that are coming. What will the league have in store for them when they get there?
Look, SVP, reality is coming.
Okay.
There's levels to this thing. You look superhuman playing against 18-year-olds, but you're going to come with some grown women that have been playing professional basketball for a long time.
WNBA legend Diana Taurasi later said this on her show during the Final Four when asked who she would pick between Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers.
I'm taking Paige. Next question.
So if you had the #1 pick this year, you would take Paige over Caitlin?
Absolutely.
No reasoning, no analysis, just disrespect. And Diana Taurasi was well known for giving rookies their welcome to the league moments. As she said years ago, every time you play rookies, you just want to fucking kill them. Physically punking them, mental bullying that takes place right before the ball goes up. And according to Taurasi, Caitlin Clark wasn't going to be ready for this. It would be a transitional period and a reality check.
With the first pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa.
The impact of Caitlin Clark's selection on draft night was immediately felt. According to Fanatics, a licensed sportswear retailer, her number 22 Indiana Fever jersey was the top earning jersey by any draft pick ever in any sport, selling out completely in just 1 hour. This draft was also the most viewed in WNBA history, with an average of 2.45 million people watching. The Caitlin Clark effect was in effect. And it was for this exact reason that Ice Cube's Big 3 basketball league offered Clark a lucrative deal to join the league for at least $15 million over 2 years. In comparison to the rookie contract that she would receive in the WNBA, that was some serious money. But how would it look if Clark selected this option over the WNBA and the future of the league? She was supposed to be the one who would bring immense fan interest to the WNBA, but now another league was basically trying to buy her out. But Caitlin Clark maintained her integrity instead of choosing the money.
This league is a league I grew up admiring and wanting to be a part of. Like, some of the women in this league were my biggest idols and role models growing up and helped me want to achieve this moment right here that I get to play in every single night.
Caitlin Clark's beginning to her rookie season would start rough, proving the doubters to be right as the Fever lost their first 5 games of the season. But the struggles didn't even stop there, losing 3 of the next 4 games to begin the season with a 1-8 record, while Clark was averaging 17 points per game on low efficiency with over 5.5 turnovers per game. Her haters were beginning to run victory laps.
The delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying she's going to go in that league and tear it apart. These people are so disrespectful and so unknowledgeable and so stupid. And Diana said it best. This kid's in for a rude awakening. This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality of that league. She's just not built for the physicality of this league. Yeah. And she's not quick enough to get away from the physicality.
And players were now beginning to seemingly target Caitlin Clark, as during her first game against the Chicago Sky and Angel Reese, this play stole the show.
I mean, that's clearly a foul, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary?
This act was called a common foul on the floor, but after further review by the league, they deemed this to be a flagrant 1 foul, as it was clearly unnecessary, and this is what Chennedy Carter had to say after the game.
I ain't answering no Caitlin Clark questions.
Now, you woman enough to check the woman, and she ain't got the ball, but you ain't woman enough to answer questions?
So Carter didn't want to address this situation with reporters, but she was fine with addressing it on social media. Besides 3-point shooting, what does she bring to the table? But a rough month would only get more rough for Caitlin Clark, as a decision was made by Team USA to leave her off the upcoming roster for the Olympics. When asked about this, Caitlin Clark brushed it off and said that this would be something for her to work towards over the next 4 years. But her coach revealed that Clark texted her that this decision just woke up a monster. One of the players to make the selection for the Olympic roster was Diana Taurasi, who had been selected to Team USA immediately after she was drafted years ago, which she was asked about.
Weren't you named to the roster as soon as you graduated, right? You were young.
Yeah, after I won 3 national championships in a row, I was named.
Another sly remark from Taurasi, and it wouldn't be too long before these two were going to match up against each other during the season. But between Team USA's decision, the victory laps by her haters, and rough treatment on the court, Caitlin Clark was beginning a revenge tour. She would never openly say it, as she never acknowledged negativity in the media, but we were about to see it on the court. As 2 weeks after the incident with Chennedy Carter, the Fever would once again face the Chicago Sky, with Caitlin Clark looking to make a statement. And this statement was as emphatic as ever, scoring 23 points to go along with 9 assists and 8 rebounds in the win, her final 3 of the game being a message to the Sky.
3 rebounding advantage. Clark pulls, fires, hits, 4-3.
And with this game, she became the fastest player to reach 200 points, 75 rebounds, and 75 assists in WNBA history. The Indiana Fever now sitting at 5-10 after a shaky 1-8 start to the season. 2 weeks after this game will be another circle date on Clark's calendar, as she will be facing her childhood idol turned critic in Diana Taurasi with the Phoenix Mercury. And early on, the vet was getting the best of this matchup, but Caitlin Clark eventually woke up.
Still trying to find her rhythm, a deep pull, got it!
The Mercury maintained control for a large part of this game, but they ultimately would be outmatched by the offensive engine that was Caitlin Clark. She finished this game with a near triple-double, 15 points, 12 assists, and 9 rebounds. A single rebound away from being the first ever WNBA rookie to record a triple-double. But that win over the Mercury was enough of a statement for her. The Fever now just 4 games below 500. But the All-Star break was coming up shortly, and it was time for this season's All-Stars to be announced. The selected All-Stars would play against the Team USA Olympic team in the All-Star game, and the selection of the WNBA All-Stars were headlined by the rookies, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, making it on the All-Star team together in their first seasons in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark received the most votes of any player this season, and to put into perspective how much of a significant increase there was in fan voting, Caitlin Clark's 700,000 votes were more than last season's top 10 vote getters combined. The league had grown so much, with Clark leading the way in that growth. That growth was put on display even more the day after the announcement of the 2024 All-Stars, with the Fever taking on the reigning champion Las Vegas Aces in a big matchup. This game averaged 1 million viewers, which was now the 10th game this season that had done that, in which the Indiana Fever had played. No other WNBA regular season game since 2008 had reached 7 figures in viewership. But regardless of the economic impact Clark was having, there were still close debates going on about Rookie of the Year between her and Angel Reese. Clark averaging 16.7 assists and 5 rebounds per game at this point, numbers that no player had ever produced in WNBA history. But some analysts had their own criteria for this Rookie of the Year award that Clark didn't fit.
Looking at the standings, You probably tend to lean Angel just a little bit, but Kayla's numbers are fantastic. And I just think this thing is going to be a lot tighter than most folks thought it might have been.
Despite a very minimal difference in team record with the majority of the rest of the numbers favoring Clark, some were favoring Reese in this race due to team success. Y'all see this right here? Over 96% of y'all watching are not subscribed to the channel. You see all these great videos right here, and that sub button right there, you might as well hit the button, man. That's all I'm saying. And for updates on future videos and a whole bunch of other things, y'all go follow me on IG and Twitter as well. It's always cool to interact with y'all over there. But Caitlin Clark was about to make one hell of a statement. The Fever's next matchup in the New York Liberty was no joke. They were the #1 team in the WNBA with a 17-3 record. But the Fever got out to a hot start, courtesy of Caitlin Clark, who was lighting it up early, 11 points in the first quarter.
Caitlin Clark pulls it back, knocks it down.
While her scoring output dropped throughout the rest of the game, her overall impact certainly didn't, as she led her team to a win over the #1 team in the league with 19 points, 13 assists, and 12 rebounds. The first triple-double by a rookie in WNBA history. Clark had won a huge game here, and she did it with a historical performance. And with the Chicago Sky dropping a game shortly after the Indiana Fever had passed them in the standings, surely now there was no debate over Rookie of the Year.
All of those turnovers, Caitlin Clark. There's just so many turnovers. Every time you look up, she's giving the ball to the other team.
If I had to pick somebody right now, I would have to, at the halfway point, go Angel over Caitlin. Caitlin Clark now has 42 more turnovers than any other player in the league.
She added another 4 last.
So now that the narrative can no longer be team record and impact on winning, the conversation began to shift to Clark's turnovers, with it conveniently being left out that she is the most blitzed player in the WNBA as a rookie, getting the toughest coverage of anybody. Caitlin Clark's revenge tour was just getting started here, and it continued going into the Fever's next game against the Minnesota Lynx, another one of the top teams in the league. This would be another game taken personally, as the head coach of the Lynx was Cheryl Reeve, also the coach of Team USA, someone who played a role in deciding to leave Clark off of the squad. And before the game, she was asked about Clark and the support that she would be getting in Minnesota.
As a coach of the home team, there's going to be a lot of people cheering for that other side.
I'll get 2 shits.
How about 1?
Not even 1 shit.
A bitter remark coming from someone who had already expressed some jealousy on social media in regards to the attention that Caitlin Clark was receiving. With this and the Team USA decision, Caitlin Clark has something to prove once again. But in the third quarter here, Clark struggled, missing all 5 of her shot attempts, the Fever losing the game by 7 entering the fourth quarter. And it was here where Caitlin Clark led a comeback, dropping 10 points in the final 10 minutes to take down the Lynx. And as it was clear that the win was secured, she hyped up the opposing crowd and stared down Cheryl Reeve in the process. She got humbled, and after the game had no choice but to give respect where respect was due. She praised Clark's ability to fill up arenas regardless of where she was playing, and afterwards she was asked what it was like to have Caitlin Clark and Maya Moore in the same building.
Well, I wish one was playing for us. Either one. I would take either one.
Just 3 days later, Clark showed why any coach would want her on a team, as she made league history against the Dallas Wings, 19 assists, the most assists ever recorded by a player in a WNBA game. In her rookie season, she had already broken the single game assist record.
She's breaking records every week. So part of the silliness of not allowing her on the Olympic team is she was a very quickly improving player, and now you kind of look silly. She's arguably the best playmaker in the league, arguably the second best three-point shooter in the league, and she's not on the team. They're trying to get her to pay her dues, but she's the one paying all the fees. She's the reason you're flying private. It's really ridiculous.
After casually making league history as a rookie, the All-Star and Olympic break was upon us. And before the Olympic team made their way to France to compete for gold, that anticipated matchup with the WNBA All-Stars was here. But Caitlin Clark struggled from the field in this game, missing all 7 of her three-point attempts. However, she still left her mark on this game with her specialty in playmaking, recording 10 assists, controlling this game offensively. And it was this that helped the WNBA All-Stars get a win over the US Olympic team, the best collection of women's basketball talent in the world that decided to leave out Caitlin Clark. It had now gotten to the point that Don Staley, a member of the Team USA selection group that played a role in the decision to leave Clark off the team, was second-guessing the decision the group made.
If we had to do it all over again, the way that she's playing, she would be in really high consideration of making the team, because she is playing head and shoulders above a lot of people.
The women's team still went on to win gold for the United States in the Olympics, as they always do. But this time around, they won their Olympic Games by their lowest margin since 19 1988, with the gold medal game being a 1-point escape versus France. The team was just less dominant than usual after leaving off a special player who was quickly becoming one of the WNBA's best. But even during this 1-month break from WNBA action, media members such as Stephen A. Smith were calling Angel Reese the Rookie of the Year, and women's basketball legend Sheryl Swoopes said that the Indiana Fever would be making the playoffs without Caitlin Clark. That certainly was not going to be the last time that we hear from her. In the first game back in action, the Indiana Fever would be taking on the Phoenix Mercury again with Diana Taurasi. So far this season, the Fever were 2-0 against the Mercury, with Taurasi missing their last matchup. Clark wanted to spoil her return to WNBA action since bringing home gold, and she did it in the craziest way possible.
Here is Clark off the screen, launches, and drops a triple.
No, it is extremely difficult. Just one, not only physically, but also mentally.
Fourth fastest pace of play, and that's
really get out in transition, see if you can get some early quick buckets.
Oh, Clark hits her third three. Clark off the screen, finds some space, and delivers. For the first time in franchise history, Fever have beaten the Mercury for 3 times in the regular season. Indiana sweeps the season series.
With 29 points, 10 assists, and 5 rebounds, not only did Clark outplay Taurasi for this win, she broke one of Taurasi's records in the process while playing against her, as this was now her 4th game with 25, 5, and 5, surpassing Taurasi's record for 3 of those such games as a rookie. Reality was indeed coming, and it had come as Caitlin Clark. There was no need for an adjustment period, but instead a need for adjusting the record books. Caitlin Clark had made her presence felt. The Fever continued to play very strongly here after the break, going on to win 3 of their next 4 games. Their playoff hopes were beginning to fall into place, while for Angel Reese's Chicago Sky, they were quickly dwindling away. But still, some of the media were saying that this Rookie of the Year race was still tight between Clark and Reese, ESPN even ranking Reese as the #1 rookie in the WNBA. And conveniently, after just 1 day of those rankings being out, the Fever and the Sky were set to face off once again. This would be a big game in determining what was still being considered a close race for Rookie of the Year. Caitlin Clark wanted to put an end to this debate.
She has stepped up her game in that opportunity. Caitlin Clark for 3, rattles it away, and off and running. Caitlin Clark wins the pass, thread the needle. My goodness, what a play! Finlay working it around here for the Fever. Good ball movement on this possession. Logo shot, and I'm going. That's one way. Count the packets. Caitlin Clark running things. 8 assists, 15 points in the first half. Looking to add to her tally.
31 points would be the best game of Clark's season, doing it on elite efficiency. But she also did it with her usual playmaking, 12 assists in this game, which was now the first time ever that a WNBA player recorded 30 points and 12 assists in a game. More history for Clark, and it couldn't have been a bigger statement. Beating the Sky by 19 points, the Rookie of the Year debate was over.
Angel Reese is having an A- rookie season, and Caitlin Clark is having arguably the greatest rookie season in the history of the league. There should be 2 unanimous awards in women's basketball this year. A'ja Wilson should get every single MVP vote there is, and Caitlin Clark should get every single Rookie of the Year vote.
The kind of hype that LeBron came into the NBA with, Caitlin Clark came to the WNBA with the same type of hype. And she's backed it up.
It's gotten to the point now that even the old man Skip Bayless, who hates to admit that he's wrong, has had to admit he was wrong.
I had Angel over Caitlin for WNBA Rookie of the Year. Caitlin Clark, in a shock to me, has proven already to be a once-a-generation passer. I did not see that coming at Iowa. I'm talking about gifted, LeBron-esque bounce passing. She takes over, she maestros, she controls game after game after game. I'm sorry, it's gotten to the point where Rookie of the Year is over 2-3 weeks ago.
Caitlin Clark's rookie season was a massive success, shattering records and setting new ones, leading her team to the playoffs after a rough beginning to the season and silencing all her doubters along the way. She said that a monster was woken up, and she wasn't lying. She has taken this league by storm. But even with all the undeniable success of Caitlin Clark, her biggest hater of all still refuses to acknowledge anything that she has done out of pure spite. Sheryl Swoopes is a women's basketball legend. She was the first player ever signed to the WNBA and went on to win 3 WNBA MVP awards to go along with her 4 championships. She is widely regarded as one of the 10 greatest women's basketball players of all time and has had great respect amongst her peers. But with her treatment of Caitlin Clark, that respect is beginning to fade away. This all began in February of this year when Caitlin Clark became the all-time leading scorer in women's college basketball, beating out Kelsey Plum's previous record set in 2017. But Sheryl Swoopes considered Caitlin Clark's record to be illegitimate, saying this on Gilbert Arenas' podcast.
You asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it.
Okay.
So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. So is it truly a broken record?
Good point, except for the fact that she was entirely wrong. Caitlin Clark didn't play an extra year due to COVID. She played the exact same 4 years as Kelsey Plum, meaning it was done on the same timetable. But the misinformation and lying by Swoopes didn't end with that statement.
Dang, like he or she's killing them, but you have a 25-year-old playing against a 20-year-old. Like, you should be killing them.
Clark broke this record at age 22, the average age of a college senior.
Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game.
During her senior season, Clark averaged 23 shots per game, and for her career, 20 shots per game, half of what Swoopes had suggested. Naturally, she was called out for her blatant lies and misinformation, where she tried to address this on another episode of Gilbert Arenas' podcast.
I'm gonna say this, and then I wanna be done with this whole conversation. So, for people to come at me and say that I made those comments because I'm a racist, first of all, black people can't be racist, but that's the farthest thing from my mind. No issues with Caitlin, her breaking the record, I think obviously is a tremendous accomplishment, although, we could get into that discussion also.
But this one-sided animosity that Swoopes held towards Caitlin Clark has only persisted, with her of course mentioning during the Olympic break that the Fever would make the playoffs even without Caitlin Clark. But with Clark proving all of her critics wrong over the season, this has made Swoopes basically ignore her existence. Sheryl Swoopes is a regular commentator for the Dallas Wings games, and during August when it was announced that Caitlin Clark had won a Player of the Week award on the broadcast, Swoopes went silent for this entire segment. On her podcast, Swoopes later went on to credit the Indiana Fever for the great season that they were having, and during this entire segment, she didn't mention Caitlin Clark a single time, instead highlighting her teammates Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Lexie Hull. And those 3 players absolutely deserve their credit, but we all know who the MVP of this team is. She clearly just didn't like Caitlin Clark, and this was personal with her. And it was for this reason that she was replaced from the Dallas Wings broadcast as a commentator for Nancy Lieberman when the Wings played against the Fever. During that broadcast, Lieberman had high praise for Caitlin Clark.
Thank you to you, Caitlin Clark.
Absolutely.
For just lifting our game up. You're going to make all these women multimillionaires one day, like Tiger did, like Michael Jordan did. And we shouldn't hate on her. We should celebrate her.
Nancy Lieberman later came on the Stephen A. Smith show and revealed even more about the situation with Sheryl Swoopes. Lieberman said that back in February when Swoopes criticized Clark with misinformation, Lieberman called her and told her she can have whatever opinion she wants, but you can't get the numbers and the stats wrong. And she needed to acknowledge that she was wrong about that.
Well, she got upset with me on the phone, and I was like, Cheryl, I'm not doing anything to hurt you. I'm just sharing. We're talking. And so our relationship it pretty much is not happening at this point. I tried to talk to her at the Final Four. Right. She didn't want to talk to me.
All because she didn't want to admit her wrongs on Caitlin Clark, Sheryl Swoopes ended a long-time friendship. Despite doing nothing to her and not saying anything negative about her, Sheryl Swoopes cannot stand Caitlin Clark. And while she is yet to admit she was wrong at any point in assessing Caitlin Clark, at some point she'll be forced to give Caitlin Clark her flowers just like everyone else she's proved wrong this year. Reality is here, and it's only a matter of time before everyone, including Sheryl Swoopes, has to accept it. Just like how it is now accepted that the greatest NBA dynasty of this era is now over in the Golden State Warriors. Check out this video where I tell the story of the mistakes that the Warriors made that eventually led to their downfall.